this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year. You can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. I've always been a fan of the old term called busman's holiday. It kind of captures something, a slice of life, if you will, when people ask you, what do you do for fun? And since I'm involved in forensics, I'm a college professor, and obviously I'm knee-deep in true crime, because this is part and parcel of Body Bags. People will say, well, what true crime shows do you watch? Can I make a confession? I'm really bearing my soul here. I don't really watch any. I read so much. I hear so much. And I'm truly blessed to be able to participate the way I do, and I'm very thankful for every opportunity. I have to take a break from it at some point in time. I read so much. So people say, well, Joe Scott, what do you do? I like history documentaries. I love to watch comedies, that sort of thing. I don't really get into true crime shows that much because I talk about it all the time. But sometimes there are people that can't seem to get enough. And true crime is different than other pursuits because just in and of itself, the term true crime means that you're brushing up against something with an element of danger in it, doesn't it? Today on Body Bags, we're gonna talk about a lady actually in South Korea that obsessed with true crime, but not just true crime itself, but the act of murder. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Dave Mack, I got to ask you, have you ever been obsessed with something? Like when you were a kid, were you obsessed with baseball cards?
Yes, baseball cards was my thing. Loved them. And believe it or not, true crime. And the reason is this. In 1969, I grew up in Southern California. When we moved from one house to another in 1969, It was during the Manson thing that was going on. It was after the Tate LaBianca murders, but before the arrest was made. Yeah, people forget that they didn't happen at the same time. The murders happened in August, right after the moon shot, and then the arrest happened after Halloween. Well, when we moved into this new house for us in Southern California, there had been a copycat crime on that street, 2 houses down from our new place.
No kidding.
Yeah, people don't ever talk about the copycat crimes that happened after that, but there were a few. And that one happened to be right there, and it was around Halloween. Now, I was a little kid, but it stuck with me because of how my parents reacted. Do we nail the window shut? This was a discussion that was had in our home. What do we do to protect it? Because at that point, these crazy people were killing everybody. That was the thought anyway. So, yeah, that's where the true crime stuff got me early, was right then. Charlie Manson and that whole crew. And I have said many, many times, if something ever violently happened to my wife and the police started looking at what I do, what I read, my goodness, they wouldn't even bother to interview me. They'd cuff me and take me.
I can only imagine what your browser history looks like. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, the research I do for all the shows. I mean, it's just, and the videos I put together.
Hey, I'm not judging. I'm in the same boat with you. I'd be in the same place, because there's stuff, even as a college professor, the stuff that I cover in forensics, I'm always trying to find applications for what we're teaching at the university level relative to crimes that have been committed and have more than likely been adjudicated, and all the evidence is available, and I can kind of talk my way through all of the stuff with my students to say, here's a practical application. And so you think you're on a university computer and you're going through all this stuff and you're thinking, I wonder what the people in IT are thinking right now, or some 3-letter organization that's out there. Yeah, and you begin to think about that. And I often wonder, is it something that kind of what you're consuming, does that define who you are? Does it define who you are as a person? For many of us, yeah. I mean, I can't escape it. I mean, it's what I do. It's what I feel like I have a knack for, at least from the forensic standpoint. I don't know about the rest of it.
One thing to think about, I remember the first book I bought and read that I wasn't required reading, for junior high school, or college. It was The Stranger Beside Me by Ann Rule, about the Ted Bundy case. And when you think about it, the true crime stuff is not a little hidden corner that we now shine a flashlight on into the covers. This is big business. A lot of people are obsessed with true crime. You and I have done well with it because people are interested. I'm interested in what you do with body bags because I cannot fathom for myself, how is it possible that people can do to other human beings what they do? And you explained it in such a way, Joe, that I actually go, okay, now I get it. I get how, I don't know the psyche, but I do know the physical part of it.
And when it comes to fandom, I love having people that listen to Body Bags and as an adjunct to Nancy's show, because people hear me on Nancy's show. Hey, you're Joe Scott and that sort of thing. And that's a lot of fun because, I get to talk with folks about cases, but every now and then particularly as social media has kind of spun up, particularly in my life, you get messages and you begin to wonder who's asking me this question. Why do they want to know this information? And, people kind of jokingly kind of blow these things off many times where they'll say, I know that if I were to get rid of person X, this is what I would do. And then they'll look at me if I'm having a conversation with them to see if I'm going to validate what they're saying. And I'm thinking, why are you dragging me into this? I don't want to get involved in whatever it is you're thinking about here. I don't even want to have anything to do with this. But there are individuals this particular genre appeals to, and if you're not careful, it can become an obsession, much like it did with the person we're talking about today, a lady who was only 23. Her name was Jung Yoo-jung, and she's actually out of South Korea, Dave. I came across this case, and I had to talk to you about it for this very reason, because, we travel to conventions, we talk to people, and it's something that's quite fascinating. There's actual studies that are done now relative to people that obsess over true crime and their thoughts about it and this sort of thing. And this is one of those cases where it just went too far.
Are you a fraud-paying American? It's a fact that 1 in 4 honest, hard-working, tax-paying Americans has been a victim of identity theft. With LifeLock Identity Theft Protection, though, if your identity is stolen, they fix it, guaranteed, and get you your money back. Last year, the IRS flagged over $16 billion in refunds for identity fraud. That's billions of dollars that could come from your salary, overtime, or second job. But this year, you don't need to stay a victim. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second for your personal information and alerts you to threats you could easily miss on your own. And if your information does fall into the wrong hands, only LifeLock has U.S.-based restoration specialists who are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package. Because this tax season, fraud-paying American is something no American should have to claim. Visit LifeLock.com/iHeart and save up to 40% your first year. That's 40% off at LifeLock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
I've been asked on several occasions when people found out what I had done in my previous life as my chosen profession, medical legal death investigation. There's two questions that will arise. What's it like living with the dead day in and day out? And here's the one that's kind of troubling, Dave, and this might be cringeworthy on your part.
Okay.
Hope you'll still be my friend after I say this to you. People will ask me, or what was it like the first time you ever took a scalpel and opened up a dead body? Now, those questions have come to me both from media and they have come to me from true crime fans. And I have to say, I think that it's something that people would have a natural curiosity about. But at what point in time do you begin to kind of say, I think that we're going too far with this? And Jung Yoo-jung's case, I think that probably it was a case of going too far.
When the media reports that the police are saying an obsessed true crime fan, it's not the most uncommon thing we have heard as of late. There are people that have gone too far. When you and I were first talking about this off air, my first thought was the Johnny Cash song. I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. It's not a foreign concept to people thinking, what would it be like? I think sometimes it's that God complex, what it would be like. I'm trying to imagine what it must be like for somebody in that zone. They are obviously somebody who would go as far as what Jung Yoo-jung is accused of being and doing. They've got a different way of looking at these crime stories than you and I do. They're doing it for some kind of prurient interest. They're getting something else out of this that you and I are not. I think sometimes we look at a crime and we think, how did this individual get to the point where they thought this was a good idea? And I think somebody else might look at it from, I don't know, the titillating aspect, the scintillating aspect of what it would be like to be able to control somebody at that level to the point of death.
Yeah, I agree. And here's something else that comes up in conversation, and maybe this applies. I know that it applies to a certain degree to this case. And that is, there have been individuals that will say, well, aren't you afraid as a forensics person that you are giving criminals a roadmap? When you stop and you think about the bare essence of that comment, that's directed at you, it does give you pause. You sit there and say, oh, well, have I gone too far? And then I'll sit back and I'll think, people have been killing one another for thousands and thousands of years. If there is something indwelling in an individual that they're motivated to do this, they're going to find a way to do it. Can they learn certain things from true crime? Certainly they can, but just because you're learning something doesn't mean that you're going to have the ability to have practical application. And that certainly really comes forth in this case involving Jung Yoo-jung.
Any way you look at it, this story goes beyond the mere fandom, the mere idea of watching television, reading books, going to the movies, watching documentaries online, and anything else you can imagine. She has taken it to the next level. The attempt to create the perfect crime. Wasn't that what, what was it?
Leopold and Loeb.
Thank you. Leopold and Loeb. Yes. The crime of the century back when it happened. And they were trying to commit the perfect crime. They picked out a 9-year-old boy, and they were going to kill him. And what they did to him was disturbing, disgusting, despicable, the same things that apply to Jung Yoo-jung.
It actually gives off this essence of almost like a God complex, where you have an individual that is taking complete and total control over an individual from soup to nuts, where they're manipulating the subject, where they can get them into a vulnerable position, and they can kind of act this thing out. And I think that's the case here, isn't it, Dave?
Yes. And that's what I think we're looking at with where we are with Jung Yoo-jung, described as a loner, reclusive. She lived at home with her family. She graduated from high school 5 years ago and has not held a job since then. She was what they referred to from the very beginning as an obsessed true crime fan. She decided that she wanted to know what it would be like to kill somebody. That was her plan, to find out. That's why they say she was an obsessed true crime fan. So she went about finding the right victim to create this perfect crime. And I'm only going to assume, Joe, and curious what your thoughts are. Do you think, and I'm not going to blame our shows, the ones that we do, for anything. People pick and choose their entertainment. When you watch football and I see somebody hitting another guy, tackling him, it doesn't make me want to go down the hallway and tackle my wife and see if I can drive her face into the carpet. Doesn't do that for me. But when I see cartoons, I don't think that Wile E. Coyote is going to get up from the bottom of the canyon in a puff of smoke and walk away in real life. But apparently, they think that somehow Jung Yoo-jung has picked up a desire to commit the perfect crime by being obsessed with all this true crime stuff.
Yeah, there's a disconnect from what the reality of it is. But I have to think, one of the things I kind of on a little aside here, did you know, Dave, that blood has a particular smell to it, and particularly when you're around a large volume of it? And it was one of those things, the visual aspect of what you see in the morgue and what you see at scenes is certainly striking. But what always got me was the smell that would kind of be throughout the environment. You're working a case, or when you're in the morgue, processing a body. Blood has this kind of sickly sweet, almost, and it has a metallic undertone to it where you can pick up on it. And I often wonder when people get involved in these horrific cases, which we cover, if that sense arrives upon them, where they actually inhale and they take on that smell into their person, and they realize, wow, I'm really into it now. I'm into this, and I don't mean that in a good way. I've really stepped off into the abyss here, because now the smell of blood within an environment, they look at their hands, they look at their clothing, and they're covered in blood. You really wonder where this disconnect from reality has occurred. You know, when you're watching something on television or maybe you're listening to a podcast, it's one thing to do that. But when you're up close and personal with it, when you're there and an individual is now perhaps begging for their life before you as the blood is draining out of their body, you're having to fight with them, and that's real because they have an awareness that they're being attacked. Are you suddenly rocked back into reality for a moment in time? Does that actually happen? Is there enough sanity remaining within these individuals that perpetrate these crimes where they have this awareness? Or are they so numb to it that it just doesn't register with them? I often wonder that, Dave.
You mentioned the smell. There also is something described as the taste. Tastes like a mouthful of pennies. Is that true?
Yeah, and here's the thing, and this used to be certainly quite off-putting when you think about it, but anything you smell, you taste. The two senses are kind of connected, and I remember distinctly being around decomposed bodies, this sort of thing, and you breathe in this environment, and it's almost just like it just permeates every bit of you. And for somebody like me that had developed a callus to it, working in the morgue and being around these scenes, that's not necessarily something that I kind of became numb to. You still have an awareness, but can you imagine that you're living out this kind of fantasy world like this young woman, Jung Yoo-jung, and suddenly here this victim is that she's essentially trapped in her home by virtue of her own planning, by the way, and she's face to face with the fact that she's killed this woman right here at her feet. And she's breathing this in. She's really in touch with this reality now. And of course, she's faced with the proposition of what in the world am I going to do with these remains now?
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
When you stay in your home, what you love gets to stay too. From the gardens that grow wild to the grandkids that run wilder. From the Friday night baseball games to the Sunday morning brunches. Even the daily crosswords and weekly book clubs. There's room for it all with help from Home Instead, the largest in-home senior care network with over 30 years of trusted experience delivering the peace of mind you deserve. Visit Home Instead online for a better what's next.
Danger. Who's lurking out there? You never know. The victim in this particular case had no sense that death was at the doorstep for her. Jung Yoo-jung actually purposed to find a victim by posing as the mother of a middle schooler and then to teach English, to find somebody that could teach English for her child. And I can only imagine when the victim came to the door and she's staring at what to her appeared to be a middle schooler dressed in a schoolgirl's outfit. This child was coming over for perhaps instruction, but that was not the case. It was the person that was going to end her life, and an attack ensued, and boy, it was absolutely horrific.
We've mentioned that Jung Yoo-jung was an obsessed true crime fan, and she set out to create the perfect crime. She had 5 years of no job, sitting at home, obsessing over different aspects of crime, and we're talking murder here. So when she allegedly premeditated, I guess you can say allegedly premeditated, but the bottom line is I believe that Jung Yoo-jung from the outset was trying to find a way to commit the perfect crime so that maybe she could write a book about it or something, that she would be the subject of a book or a movie or a TV show. So she planned everything. When they actually were able to start investigating Joseph Scott Morgan, one of the first things police found, they found that on her phone, there were 3 months worth of search history on how to hide a corpse. How to hide a corpse. Now, we know that she searched for her victim online using an app that connects parents with private tutors so she could ostensibly learn English for her child. When she shows up, she's dressed in a uniform they would wear to a middle school to put her potential victim at ease. She's got her glasses on. I've looked at pictures, and Joe, she could pass for a kid. She looks very small and diminutive and looks like a child. 2 days before the killing, she reaches out, makes plans. She poses as a 9th grader, arrives at the home, and here we go. It's game on. When Young went to the home disguised as a student wearing a school uniform that she purchased online, she knew she was in. And once inside the home, she allegedly stabbed the victim. So, Joe, what happened next?
When the door is open and you're standing face to face with this person that you're assuming is going to come in and you're going to instruct them in English, you're not expecting them to produce a knife at that point in time. But produce a knife, she did, and she began to bury it in her multiple times. And at this point in time, it appears as though that it was not enough just to kill this poor woman in her home, this woman that worked as what they refer to as an independent tutor. She lay there and at the feet of this perpetrator, she has to make a decision as to what she's going to do. She begins to actually dismember this woman's body there in her home. And this is the fascinating thing. You talked about how do you go about, you got all this planning because the search history goes back months where she had been looking to do this for 3 months. And you can't do a better job than this, ? Because it doesn't matter how much you read about it or how much you obsess about it. It's the actual doing, actually making this happen.
Let me ask you a question about the blood, because I'm really curious if you're planning an attack and you have no background in the human body and what happens. I mean, I don't have a clue. I know what you and I have reported on and covered, but I don't actually know. So as a layperson, I've got the stabbing down. I figured that out based on my research. But what am I going to find when it comes to blood? When the person is dead or dying and blood, how much blood are we talking about?
Copious amount. Obviously, when you're stabbing them to death, the individual is going to be bleeding out. So dependent upon where these injuries actually took place. And when I say the injuries taking place, I'm talking about the anatomical orientation. Let's say you clip a lung or you clip a major vessel in the neck. They will bleed out profusely. And say, for instance, you go into their chest, you nick their lung, you'll have an individual begin to aspirate blood. They'll spew it out. Many times you'll see this kind of projectile blood patterns that are sprayed onto walls, onto surfaces, and it'll be very fine. It'll almost look like high velocity blood staining. And of course, the clothing will be just inundated with blood as well. So there'll be a tremendous amount. Then after this occurs, when you're talking about the dismemberment, dependent upon where you do it within the home, you're going to leave behind even more evidence. If an individual were to go to a bathtub, for instance, there might be a higher probability that they could facilitate a dismemberment in a bathtub and then try to cleanse the area, but you're still running the risk of leaving blood in the drain and certainly in the drain traps and everything. But in this particular case, as this person begins to dismember the body, she takes certain elements of the body, places them in a suitcase, okay? And then she retains other parts of the body that she has within her home. And not only does she have this, Dave, she's also got the victim's mobile phone, her ID cards, and her wallet. And I don't know how she thought that this was committing a perfect crime, because it doesn't resonate with me as the committing of a perfect crime as much as it does of somebody that's trying to emulate a serial killer that takes trophies, because that's what they do. Okay. A perfect crime would be, in my estimation at least, or you're getting closer to perfection by separating yourself from this thing as much as you possibly can. And here's the rub. You leave so much physical connectivity in this particular case that you actually tie yourself back to being in the presence of the individual. You have obviously elements of their body that are with you. And then you have identifiers, government IDs, and all these sorts of things. So that's quite fascinating.
When you look at somebody whose attempt is to create the perfect crime, allegedly, she didn't think it through. You mentioned the ID, the phone, personal belongings. Her idea, according to police, was to make it seem as if this victim had just disappeared, whether on their own or by somebody else, that she was just gone. And as part of that plan, I guess she didn't consider that using a taxi cab as your means for getting the body out somewhere, that you're leaving a witness, you're leaving somebody who picked you up at the house, has now taken you to the woods, has now taken you back from the woods. And when the body is found near the river, don't you think it's all over the news that the taxi cab driver would be, hey, I gave a ride to a person who took a suitcase out there by the river?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. I think the odd thing about this, Dave, is she didn't quite make it to the river with suitcase. She left the remains that were in the suitcase in a wooded area adjacent to the river. So it's certainly a head scratcher. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies. My wife and I watch it generally once a year, and that is I Love You to Death. And it had River Phoenix in it. And a funny line that River Phoenix stated in that movie is he's actually talking to Keanu Reeves in one of the scenes, and William Hurt, who played these two guys. His story is actually based on a true event. River Phoenix says to Keanu Reeves and William Hurt, it's generally not a good idea to take a taxi to the scene of a murder. And, no truer words were ever spoken, because as it turns out, the taxi cab driver in this particular case was what actually pointed the authorities back to the perpetrator, because she had, in fact, can you imagine this? Can you imagine being an individual that's living out this fantasy of, quote unquote, committing the perfect homicide, the perfect crime, and you're going to be so bold, or maybe so thoughtless, or dare I say stupid, to take a suitcase with human remains, place them in the seat beside you, or maybe you had the taxi driver place them in the trunk and say, take me to this isolated location. He's going to remember that. And this case is so over the top that when reports of this come out in the news in Korea, can you imagine? The taxi driver is thinking back to that moment in time. He's saying, oh my God, I was actually transporting not just the perpetrator, but also the victim's remains.
This case has only been to the part where we've been able to talk about the murder, not even of the name. We don't have a name of the victim yet. We know that Jung Yoo-jung has been charged, but it has not gone through the system. This is still pretty early on. We'll keep you updated as soon as we know what is going to happen. But based on the discussions that have been named publicly in terms of Jung Yoo-jung and what she has said to the police, they're going to have to resolve this probably before court, I would guess. But we'll keep you updated.
I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
Are you a fraud-paying American? 1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has been a victim of identity fraud. With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Last year, billions in refunds were stolen. Could be from your salary, overtime, or second job. Gone. But this year, you don't need to stay a victim, because this tax season, fraud-paying American is something no American should have to claim. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
At CVS, it matters that we're not just in your community, but that we're part of it. It matters that we're here for you when you need us, day or night. And we want everyone to feel welcomed and rewarded. It matters that CVS is here to fill your prescriptions and here to fill your craving for a tasty and, healthy snack. At CVS, we're proud to serve your community because we believe where you get your medicine matters. So visit us at cvs.com or just come by our store. We can't wait to meet you. Store hours vary by location.
This Sunday, iHeartRadio brings you live to Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl 60 tailgate concert, presented by NetApp. It's the ultimate pregame party, featuring an exclusive performance from Teddy Swims. Your front row experience will be on iHeartRadio stations across the country and the free iHeartRadio app this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Then, after the concert, tune in to the Super Bowl 60 pregame show on NBC.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.